am Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to this video. Alright, there's gonna be new people watching this video, first time on my channel. Welcome, most likely due to the topic. I'll get to that in a minute. You actually know from the thumbnail and the title, probably Unity. So little context, I'm a game developer, been independent game developer since 2004. That's 2 decades of creating games and making a living from it full time. I'm not a Unity user. That's, first of all, I use libgdx for like a tiny part and then build my own engine on top of that. But yeah, there has been some stuff happening around Unity. Right now, as I'm recording this video, last Friday, they have said to come back with a new statement on everything that happened, but they haven't yet. So I'm not sure what happened between recording this video and putting it live. Hopefully something. I'm not up to date on those things. I also don't want to get in too much of the drama, or just a little bit, and I'm not gonna talk about all the details because I've seen so many reports. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, just Google Unity and shit show and you'll probably figure out what has happened. I'm gonna talk about a bunch of things. I wrote down a list of keywords and sentences, and I originally didn't want to make a video about Unity because I saw all the other YouTube game developers do it, and to be honest, yeah, I just didn't want to do it, but people asked about it and asked my opinion on it and are still talking about it. So yeah, got a list of things to talk about, and I'm gonna try to keep it short without rambling and get to a different type of point that nobody else has mentioned before. Well, that's a nice teaser. Right, intro. So first of all, for those that have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, Unity is a game making tool, not the only one. It's a tool that a lot of game developers use, from very tiny solo hobbyist people to AAA companies making millions of money on mostly mobile, but also on PC and consoles. They changed a bunch of things, and pretty much what it comes down to is that they want to earn more money from their users in such a way that it's very wrong, it's very weird, it's not clear. They changed their terms of service and in such a way that it was pretty sure that it's written by somebody who has no technical knowledge of how game development and the whole world and business around games works. Pretty much, it's like asking a 4-year-old to write up your prenup for marriage. They have no idea. They're just gonna say these toys are mine and you can play with my toys, but you know, it's just gonna be nonsense, and that's pretty much what this was. So a lot of backlash from developers, but that snowballed into drama, which I think was kind of hilarious and a little bit too much, a little bit overkill. Started at some point, developers started making statements on Twitter and other social media that their opinions and that they would stop using Unity or want to have these changes rolled back or whatever. But then everybody jumped on that, and developers that haven't released their first game yet, and I saw a bunch of those, made a statement that, well, Unity, we don't stand for this. Honestly, Unity doesn't care about you at all. Obviously, it doesn't care about anybody, but it certainly doesn't care about you because you haven't released a game, you're just using their tool and you're not making any money at all. These changes were focused for the 10%, the top 10% earning, and mostly those are the mobile game developers because that's big business. They have an advertising platform, in-app payments, but they also spend millions to make a couple of millions more. So the profit isn't as much as the revenue, far from it, and that's where Unity just totally missed the ball and completely has no understanding of how it works, and that's what caused most of the problems. All right, just a couple of things. What more do I have to say? All right, I also noticed a lot of developers now jumping ship to Godot, and there's like a cult around Godot, so if I say bad things, there are gonna people commenting below, but Godot, as cool as it is and as nice a tool as it is, and it's free and it's the alternative to Unity right now for at least 2D games, it's not on the same level as Unity. It's just not there yet. And of course there's now a large influx of things and people helping the project and whatnot, but for bigger companies making a living and earning money, they cannot just hop to such a different engine. Everybody working at that company needs to be reschooled and relearn everything, and it's just gonna be such a big thing and such a almost impossible problem to fix quickly, especially because a lot of these developers have games that are a service, so they are pushing updates every week. They are doing new stuff to it, new art, new features, new functions, just to keep people playing that game. They cannot just abandon the game on the Unity engine and somehow turn it into a Godot engine like that. It just doesn't work like that for the business side of things. And if you're a hobbyist, of course, check out Godot. It's pretty cool, it's pretty interesting, and there are like 10, 15 other engines out there that you should check out. I've mentioned this many times on my videos. Find an engine, check them all out, and find one and stick to it and use it. And of course, at some point, even Godot will be abandoned. The main developers behind it will at some point want to move on or lose interest, or life changes or whatever, and then other people have to pick it up, and hopefully that happens. But if it doesn't, an engine like that will also die out. So right now Godot looks like a very cool option and everybody jumps onto it, but I'm not sure that's gonna be the solution for everybody. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the solution for everybody. All right, so yeah, let's get to the point I want to make with this video, which I think not many people talked about this, but I found it interesting, and this is what mostly came up in my mind during all of this, is that a lot of game developers seem to be game developers because of Unity. Unity is, I haven't used it, I looked at it here and there, and I talked to a lot of other game developers and noticed their struggle with Unity, but overall it's a very interesting tool that allows a lot of game developers that are not as skilled in programming to still create interesting and impressive games. And that's awesome and amazing on one hand. It also caused a surge in a lot of games being created over the last decade or two. Of course, that's been mentioned many times as the indie apocalypse, but that keeps being mentioned every other year, so that's not really a thing anymore. But Unity allows a lot of people, a lot of creatives to create games without full understanding of what it takes to create a game. So if a tool like Unity suddenly changes, or maybe you don't want to use it anymore, or maybe it ends at some point, then what? And now, of course, that's pretty amazing for Unity to be in that situation. Same goes for Unreal and GameMaker. They roped in a lot of developers or creatives to become a game developer and show them an easy way to create games, or an easier way to create games. Of course, it's not the only way. I'm gonna say it, I'm old school. I started Orangepixel in 2004, but I was developing games in various formats and ways for like decades before that. So I know how to start from scratch. Just an empty canvas, no code, no script, no assets, no visual interface. Just type in code and make it run on your device. And a lot of game developers these days, I think, I'm not exactly sure, and I don't want to have a lot of people get mad at me, but I think a lot of game developers do not understand what goes into, or what happens under the hood. And I've already noticed that with game developers that are working on their first game, and they put a bunch of stuff in there and cool physics and lights and all those things, but they have no understanding of all the work that happens without them. They're just dragging a light over here and that's it. But there's a lot of code being done, and that code can be written by you as well. Of course, it requires a lot of knowledge, and I'm not even that knowledgeable to do 3D and all that stuff. I still create 2D games. But even for 2D games, there are just a lot of people who have no idea where to start, and they'll be putting in real-time physics and ragdoll physics and stuff like that. Just for very simple things like gravity can be done in 2 or 3 lines of code if you know how and if you understand it. And I sometimes feel like a lot of game developers lost that magic. For me, that's still magic. Just having to write code, just trying to optimize it and make it short and interesting in such a way that it functions and that the game benefits from it. And of course, if you can just download a script from the asset store, it's very tempting to just do that and not really worry about it. But as you notice now is that you are depending on other people a lot. And I try to avoid that in all my Orangepixel games. I started using libgdx in 2015, so only 8 years now. Before that, I wrote everything myself. I was very hesitating to jump towards libgdx, even though it did all the stuff I needed to do and more and better in certain ways. But I was very fearful of fully depending on an open source project to power my games, because what if they suddenly stopped updating or stopped working on it? My game code would be tied in or linked into this libgdx platform, and I had to relearn everything for the next game and relearn a new engine or tool. So I've pretty much tried to avoid that by always writing as much of my own code as possible. So even though I use libgdx, I use like a very tiny part of it just to get stuff rendering on the screen and support it for different platforms. So Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android. That's all covered, and the input schemes for handling gamepads and keyboards, stuff like that is usually available in all the engines and all the stuff. Monogame, I don't even know all of them. There are so many engines out there. SDL and XNF or FNL, I don't know. There are many engines out there, many options that are really code-based. And as long as I can move my own code to another language and another engine, I feel I'm safe for the future, and that's pretty much how I keep building my games. Maybe that's a good topic for a video coming pretty soon, just explaining how my framework or engine works under the hood and what moves from game to game and what is ditched and how do I manage all of that. So I'm gonna do a video on that pretty soon, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. But yeah, I think that's been the most interesting thing to notice, that a lot of people are just depending on Unity. And now you have a lot of people jumping to Godot as one of the main indie heroes, I guess. And now they're all trying to figure out how to do the stuff they are used in Unity, how to do that in Godot, because they only know how to do it in Unity. And that's a serious problem. If at some point the engine makers stop their work, who will actually do the work for them if everybody else is just only using their tools and not understanding what goes on under the hood? So yeah, I think that's my main take of this. And look, Unity made a big mistake. That's pretty clear. And all the changes they were making, it's like somebody wrote them without actually understanding the whole game development market. It's also like they only wrote it to target specific high revenue developers on mobile. They didn't even think about console and PC or web. There's still people creating web versions through Unity. All that was just ignored, neglected, not thought about or whatever. And they created this whole thing to target specific developers, but then hurt and harm everybody else. And of course, the biggest thing is not so much the new terms of service or whatever it's called, but it's more that they changed it, and they changed it with backwards for all your existing games as well, and just the trust in Unity has gone. And it's interesting to see the panic and the drama happening. But yeah, it doesn't honestly affect me, which is, I know, probably a bad way to end this video with a smile. It doesn't affect me, but it's interesting to follow all of that. And it's, yeah, I hope a lot more game developers will try non-visual game engines, but actually dive into code like libgdx, monogame. There are so many others out there where you really have to dig into code. And if you're just interested in creating games, that, yeah, all right, then it's fine that visual tools are much easier. But if you have a little bit of that technical stuff and that little, you want to learn a little bit more about details and inner stuff and how things work, especially if you're going to be doing 2D games, you don't need this whole engine. You don't need a gigabyte of data and assets and stuff happening in the background for a game that could be written in 30 megabytes or even less. It's gonna be eye-opening for a lot of game developers. And I'm gonna end the video here because else I'm just gonna be rambling on and on and on. And this has been keeping game developers awake for 2 weeks now, I think. let's hope they have come up with a solution before the video here goes live, or let's hope they are coming up with a better solution pretty soon. I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't think a rollback is on the table. They obviously need money to come in for their shareholders, so they need to make changes. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I put my money on just learning some more in-depth game development. Alright, thanks for watching this video. Comment below, come hop on the Discord if you want to shout at me or whatever for saying bad things about your favorite new engine or options or development skills or whatever. It's all in good fun, and I'll see you next week. And soon I'll be talking or doing a video about my game engine, which is more a framework, and I think that's the best way to handle these things. Trust me, I've been doing it for a while. Right, bye.